I shared my sandwich with a homeless man, then I met my fiancé's reclusive billionaire father. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone. It's strange how the smallest, most ordinary moments can change everything. I didn't know that when I woke up that morning, my life was about to twist in a way I could never have imagined. It was just another Tuesday. Cold air, coffee too, bitter, and the kind of quiet that makes you feel alone even when the world outside is busy. I remember walking down the street, clutching my brown paper lunch bag like it was the only thing keeping me warm. I was running late for work, my heels tapping against the sidewalk, my hair catching in the wind. I worked as a marketing assistant back then. Nothing fancy, just a job that paid the bills and kept my mind busy. My fiancé, Evan, always teased me about how seriously I took everything. "You need to relax, Alic," he'd say with that soft smile of his. But relaxing never came easy to me. I liked control, predictability, order. I thought I knew how my days would go. But that morning reminded me how fast life can flip that illusion upside down. The city was alive with noise-honking cars, people rushing by, someone playing guitar near the coffee shop on 6th Avenue. And then, in the middle of all that motion, I noticed him. A man sitting by the corner, his clothes old and worn, his eyes lost somewhere far away. There was something about the way he sat so still, like he was invisible to everyone else. People walked past him as if he wasn't even real. I don't know why, but I slowed down. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe curiosity. Or maybe it was the quiet sadness in his eyes that pulled me in. When I got closer, he looked up, and for a moment, our eyes met. I felt a sting in my chest I couldn't explain. I didn't have cash, just my lunch, a turkey sandwich I'd made that morning while half asleep. I hesitated thinking about how silly it would look, giving a stranger my food. But something inside whispered, "Just do it." So, I walked up and handed him the bag. He looked surprised, like he couldn't believe I was talking to him. "It's nothing fancy," I said, trying to sound casual. He smiled faintly and said, "Thank you, miss." His voice was soft, careful, like each word had weight. There was something strangely familiar about his tone, but I brushed it off. I walked away quickly, trying not to feel awkward, but that moment stuck in my head. All day at work, I kept thinking about him. Who was he? What had happened to him? Why did his eyes seem like they carried 1,000 untold stories? Later that night, when Evan came over, I told him about it. He laughed, shaking his head. "You and your bleeding heart," he said, pulling me close. "You can't save everyone, babe." I smiled, but deep down, something in me disagreed. It wasn't about saving anyone. It was about that strange feeling I couldn't shake off. Days went by. I kept walking the same street, hoping to see him again, but he wasn't there. The corner felt emptier somehow. Life went back to its routine morning coffee, work deadlines, wedding planning. Evan's parents were supposed to visit soon, but I'd never met them. He always said his father was a private man, and I respected that. Still, I couldn't help but feel curious. One evening, Evan called and told me we were having dinner with his father next week. My heart raced. I wanted to make a good impression. I spent hours choosing a dress, rehearsing polite small talk in front of the mirror. It was silly, I know, but something about the way Evan said, "He's complicated," made me nervous. The night of the dinner, I remember feeling both excited and uneasy. We arrived at a private estate outside the city. The gates were massive, the kind you only see in movies. The driveway seemed endless, lined with old oak trees that whispered secrets in the wind. The mansion that appeared at the end looked cold and distant, like it had seen too much and felt too little. Inside, everything gleamed: marble floors, gold frames, a chandelier that looked like it could feed a village. I tried to smile, to act normal, but something about the place felt wrong. It wasn't just the silence, it was the way it watched you. A butler led us to the dining room. My hands were cold, my throat dry. Evan looked calm, almost too calm. And then, the door opened. A tall man walked in, gray hair, deep-set eyes, and a quiet authority that filled the room. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My heart dropped so hard I thought I might faint. Because I knew that face. It was him. The same man from the street. The same man I'd given my sandwich to just days ago. He looked at me, and this time, his eyes didn't seem lost. They were sharp, focused, almost amused. I froze, gripping the edge of the table. 1,000 questions collided in my head. How was this possible? Why didn't he tell me who he was? And more importantly, why was he pretending to be someone else back then? Evan's voice cut through the tension. "Alic," he said, smiling. "This is my father, Mr. Harrison Cole." The room spun. The air felt too heavy to breathe. I forced a smile, shaking his hand. It's nice to meet you," I managed to say, my voice trembling. But his eyes held mine for a beat too long, and he said, almost in a whisper, "We've met before, haven't we?" I felt the blood drain from my face. I wanted to deny it, to play dumb, but my voice wouldn't come out. He smiled faintly, as if he knew exactly what I was thinking. And in that moment, I realized whatever this was, it was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, the man from the street, sitting with that quiet sadness, holding the sandwich I'd given him. And then, the same man, standing tall in a mansion, wearing an expensive suit, surrounded by wealth most people could only dream of. How could both be true? My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Evan thought I was just nervous about meeting his father. He had no idea what was really going through my head. He kissed my forehead before bed and said, "You were perfect tonight." Perfect. That word felt like a lie. Because I wasn't perfect. I was confused, terrified, and full of questions I didn't dare ask. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my untouched coffee. I kept replaying that moment at dinner, his eyes meeting mine, that faint smirk like he was testing me. What did he want? Why didn't he say anything about the day we met? Maybe it was all some weird coincidence, I tried to tell myself. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. 2 days later, I got a message from Evan's assistant saying Mr. Cole wanted to see me alone. My stomach dropped. Alone? Why? Evan brushed it off. "He probably just wants to get to know you better," he said. But his tone didn't convince me. It was the same calm tone he used when he was trying to hide something. That afternoon, I drove back to the estate, my hands gripping the steering wheel tight. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds that looked ready to burst. The gate opened slowly, almost dramatically, like it knew I didn't belong there. I was escorted to a study, huge shelves of old books, a fireplace glowing softly, and a grand desk in the center. He was there, sitting behind it, reading something. When he looked up, his expression was unreadable. "Miss Rose," he said, his voice smooth and calm. "Please, sit." I sat, my pulse racing. He didn't speak for a while, just studied me. Then, with a small smile, he said, "You're quite a kind woman." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "That day on the street," he continued, "most people walked by. But you stopped." So he remembered. I felt my throat tighten. "I didn't know who you were," I said quietly. He leaned back. That's exactly why it meant something. There was silence, heavy, uncomfortable silence. He looked thoughtful, almost sad, then said, "You must be wondering what I was doing there." I didn't answer, but he nodded as if I had. "Sometimes," he said, "you learn more about people when they think you have nothing to offer them." The words sent a chill through me. Was he testing people? Pretending to be homeless just to see how they reacted? I didn't know what to think. "Why me?" I asked finally. He smiled faintly. "Because Evan talks about you. I wanted to see who you really are." My heart pounded. "So, you followed me?" "Not followed," he said. his tone calm but firm. Observed. I had to know if my son was marrying someone genuine. I didn't know whether to feel flattered or violated. My palms were sweaty, my chest tight. That's cruel, I whispered. He sighed, standing slowly. Cruel. Perhaps. But necessary. I spent a lifetime surrounded by people who only see my money. You didn't. You saw a man who needed help. He paused, his gaze softening. That's rare. For a moment, the anger in me softened too. There was pain in his eyes, loneliness, maybe even regret. But before I could say anything, he added, Still, kindness doesn't always mean honesty. Be careful, Alic, not everyone who smiles means well. The shift in his tone made my heart skip. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the gray sky. My son, he said quietly, is not the man you think he is. I froze. The words hit me like a slap. What are you saying? He turned slowly, his face shadowed by the firelight. You'll understand soon. Just remember what I told you. Before I could ask anything else, the butler appeared, announcing that my car was ready. Mr. Cole nodded toward the door, signaling the conversation was over. I stood there, confused and shaken, then left. On the drive home, my mind raced. Was he trying to scare me or warn me? The way he said it, so calm, so sure it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like the truth. When I got home, Evan was waiting. How did it go? He asked. I hesitated, then forced a smile. Fine, I lied. He hugged me. But I couldn't feel the warmth in it anymore. All I could hear were his father's words echoing in my head. Not the man you think he is. That night, while Evan slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My heart wouldn't settle. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And I could feel it pressing in from the edges of my perfect little life. And for the first time, I realized the truth, Mr. Mature. Cole had been hinting it might be closer than I ever wanted to believe. The next few days were like living in a fog. Everything around me looked the same, but nothing felt right anymore. Evan's smile, his gentle words, the way he reached for my hand, all of it suddenly felt rehearsed. Like lines from a play I didn't know I was in. Mr. Play I didn't know I was in. Cole's warning echoed in my head like a heartbeat I couldn't shut off. He's not the man you think he is. I tried to brush it aside, to convince myself I was being paranoid. But the more I tried, the more cracks I started noticing. Evan's phone would buzz late at night. He'd step outside to take calls, saying it was work. He started getting secretive about his meetings, changing the subject whenever I asked questions. And yet, every time I looked into his eyes, there was still that warmth, the kind that made me want to believe him. But deep down, a quiet fear was growing. One evening, after he left for a supposed client dinner, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed him. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe, but I needed to know. The truth felt closer than ever, and I couldn't run from it anymore. He drove across the city, past the fancy restaurants he usually mentioned, into a quieter part of town. He parked in front of a small, dimly lit building, nothing like his usual scene. I waited in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. He got out, looking around carefully, then walked inside. 10 minutes passed, then 20. My mind raced with every possible explanation, none of them good. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped out of my car and crept toward the building. The front door was slightly open. I pushed it, just enough to see inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Evan was there, sitting at a table with two men I didn't recognize. There were papers spread out in front of them. Contracts. It looked like stacks of cash. One of the men slid a folder toward him, saying something I couldn't hear. Evan nodded, his expression hard, almost unrecognizable. I stepped back, trying not to make a sound. My chest felt like it might burst. Who was this man? What was he involved in? And why did his father warn me? I turned to leave, but the door creaked. Evan's head snapped up. Our eyes met for a split second before I ran. I didn't stop until I reached my car, slamming the door shut, shaking so badly I could barely hold the keys. My phone buzzed. It was him calling. I couldn't answer. When I got home, I locked the door, sat on the floor, and cried. I didn't know what I just walked into, but I knew one thing. It wasn't innocent. I thought about calling Mr. Cole, but I wasn't sure if I could trust him either. The whole family suddenly felt like a maze of secrets. Hours later, there was a knock at my door. My stomach flipped. I didn't move. The knocking came again, louder this time. Alic, it's me, Evan's voice called out. Please open the door. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. He sounded calm, but there was something forced in his tone. I opened the door just enough to see him standing there, his tie loosened, face tense. You followed me? He said quietly, not angry, just certain. I had to, I whispered. What are you doing? Evan? He sighed, stepping closer. You wouldn't understand. Then make me understand. My voice cracked. Your father warned me about you. What did he mean? His eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before, fear, maybe, or guilt. He looked away. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I could tell he was lying. The silence between us felt heavy enough to crush me. Evan, I said softly, who are those people? He didn't answer. He just reached for my hand. Alic, I love you. That's all that matters. I pulled away. No, it's not. You're hiding something. I saw the money, the papers. What are you involved in? His jaw tightened. You shouldn't have been there. That one sentence scared me more than anything, because it wasn't just frustration, it was warning. He turned and left without another word. I stood there, trembling, feeling the world tilt beneath me. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow seemed to move. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from Evan, and 1 message. We need to talk, don't go to my father. I stared at those words, my heart sinking. Because that was exactly what I planned to do. I drove straight to Mr. Cole's estate, desperate for answers. When I arrived, he was already waiting for me in the same study, as if he knew I'd come. I told you, he said calmly, the man you love isn't who he pretends to be. Tears burned in my eyes. Then tell me who he is. He hesitated, then finally spoke. My son has been running something dangerous, something illegal. I've tried to stop him, but he's too deep in now. The men you saw last night, they aren't clients. They're part of what's destroying him. I felt the room spin. You knew? You let me be with him? I hoped you would change him, he said softly. But now, I need your help. My help? He leaned closer. I can't reach him anymore. But you can. He trusts you. If you can find out who he's working with, I can end it before it destroys everything. I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. You're asking me to spy on the man I love. He nodded slowly. I'm asking you to save him. And in that moment, I realized there was no turning back. Whatever this family secret was, I was already a part of. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. The room felt too quiet, too heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Every tick of the clock made me flinch. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, hoping, praying maybe, that I'd wake up and realize all of it was just a bad dream. But it wasn't. It was real. Every word, every picture, every message. They were all still there, staring back at me. Proof that everything I thought was safe wasn't. By morning, I felt hollow. My eyes burned from crying, but the tears wouldn't come anymore. I just wanted answers. I wanted to understand why. How could someone who swore they loved me turn around and destroy me like that? I kept asking myself that question over and over again, like maybe if I said it enough times it would start to make sense. I finally got up and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't even look like me anymore. Pale, tired, broken. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear. But instead, I just whispered to my reflection, "You're not done yet." I didn't even know where that strength came from, but saying it made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I still had some control left. That's when my phone buzzed. It was him. Of course it was. A single message, "We need to talk." My hands started shaking. The last thing I wanted was to hear his voice again, but a part of me needed to. I needed to look him in the eye and see if he could lie to me again after everything he'd done. So I texted back, "Fine, 1 hour, same place." The cafe where it all began. The same corner table where he used to wait for me with that stupid smile, pretending like I was the only person in his world. I almost laughed at the irony of it. Now that place was going to be the graveyard of whatever was left between us. When I got there, he was already sitting, looking nervous, his leg bouncing under the table, his phone clutched in his hand like it could save him. The moment he saw me, he stood up. "Alic, I said. "Just don't." I sat down and he followed, like a guilty kid waiting for punishment. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, just the clinking of cups, the quiet murmur of other people's laughter. All of it felt so distant, like I was watching from somewhere else. Finally, he said, "I never meant for it to happen like that." I looked straight into his eyes. "You never meant what? The lies? The messages? Or the part where you humiliated me in front of everyone?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. That silence told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. Scared of being exposed, of losing the perfect image he'd built. "You know what hurts the most?" I whispered. "It's not that you betrayed me. It's that you looked me in the eyes while doing it and smiled." He looked down, his fingers gripping his cup so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Alic, please. I didn't want you to find out like that. She meant nothing." "She?" The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. So there it was, the truth laid bare. Ugly, pathetic, and final. I stood up, every bit of fear and sadness turning into something else. Something sharper. "You know what? You don't even deserve my anger." My voice was calm, too calm. "Because you already destroyed yourself the moment you thought I wouldn't find out. And then I walked away. Out of the cafe. Out of that chapter of my life. But here's the thing. Walking away doesn't mean healing starts right away. That's what no one tells you. You don't magically feel free. You just feel empty." For weeks after that, I went through the motions, work, home, sleep, repeat. People noticed something was off, but I smiled and told them I was fine. The truth was, I was falling apart quietly. I deleted his number. I blocked his social media. But my mind kept replaying it all, like a cruel movie I couldn't stop watching. And then, one night, I got an anonymous message. No name, just a picture. It was him, again. With her, laughing, at the same cafe. I don't know how long I stared at that photo, but I remember feeling something shift inside me. Not pain this time. Not even anger. Just clarity. I realized I had spent so much time trying to make sense of his betrayal that I'd forgotten the most important thing. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need closure from someone who never cared about the damage he caused. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened my window, looked up at the stars, and let myself breathe. For the first time, the silence didn't scare me. It felt peaceful, like I was finally standing at the edge of something new, something I could build myself. But life has this strange way of testing you right when you think you're getting back up. Because just when I thought it was over, I found out something that pulled me right back into the chaos. It was late, maybe past midnight, when my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. But this time, it wasn't a picture, it was a video, and when I opened it, my hands went cold. Because what I saw wasn't just about him anymore, it was me. Someone had been recording me, my face, my voice. my private conversations, every secret moment I thought was mine. Someone had been watching. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Who was it? How long had they been doing this? My heart raced as I scrolled. There were more files, more dates, more proof that my life had been under someone else's control for months. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor, but I couldn't move. The walls seemed to close in, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was safe anywhere, not even in my own home. I didn't know it then, but that night, that video was just the beginning of something much darker. Something I never saw coming. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house felt louder than usual. The faint ticking of the clock, the soft creak of the walls, even the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who recorded me? Why? What did they want? I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew. My instincts had been whispering for weeks, maybe months, and I had ignored them until now. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching my phone, replaying the same few seconds of that video again and again. My voice sounded different, shaken, tired, too open. The lighting in the clip looked like my living room. The same curtains, the same lamp. Whoever recorded it had been inside my home. My stomach twisted at the thought. I felt violated, like someone had reached into my private world and stolen a piece of my peace. I remember whispering to myself, "This can't be happening, not again." When I finally stood up, my legs were trembling. I walked to the mirror and stared at myself for a long time. The girl staring back looked familiar, yet foreign: dark circles, hollow eyes, and that lost expression that only comes when trust breaks in too many places. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. My tears felt trapped somewhere deep, locked behind all the fear and confusion. The next morning, I went through my phone trying to trace where the video came from. No sender, no number, just an anonymous link. Every time I tried to open it again, it disappeared, deleted, erased like it was never there. I almost laughed, the kind of bitter laugh that hurts your throat, because I realized whoever was behind it knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted me scared, confused, paranoid. And it was working. I stopped opening my curtains that week. I unplugged my television at night, turned off my phone, and sat in silence for hours. The walls of my house felt smaller every day, pressing closer, whispering doubts. I didn't even tell anyone, not my fiancé, not my best friend, not even the woman from work who always seemed to notice when something was wrong. I didn't trust anyone anymore. I couldn't. Every time I tried to leave the house, my mind started spinning with what ifs. What if someone was watching from across the street? What if they followed me? What if they recorded more? My own thoughts became my worst enemies. I used to love walking alone, feeling the wind on my face. But now every step felt like walking through a minefield. Every reflection in a window looked like someone staring back. Then one night, I sat in the dark and started talking to myself out loud. I said, "Alic, this isn't you. You're stronger than this. You've been through worse." But the silence that followed didn't agree. It felt like the room itself was holding its breath, listening to me unravel. I realized how alone I really was. The people I loved were there, somewhere, but I had pushed them all away. And the ones I had trusted the most, they were the ones who taught me to fear trust. I began to write. Not for anyone else, just for me. Every night, I filled pages with my thoughts raw, messy, unfiltered. Some nights I wrote about the video. Some nights about the man I once thought would protect me forever. And some nights about the girl I used to be before all this. It didn't fix me, but it kept me from falling apart completely. My notebook became my only safe place, my proof that I was still here, still real, still fighting. But as I wrote, strange things started happening again. My words disappeared. I'd open the notebook and entire pages would be blank. I tore one out to keep with me, and the next day, it was gone from my bag. No explanation, no sign, just gone. It felt like someone or something was always one step ahead. I remember whispering, "Am I losing my mind?" Because that's exactly how it felt. By the end of that week, I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, completely drained. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The line between truth and fear blurred until everything looked the same, dangerous. I remember sitting by the window one evening, staring out at the streetlights, when I saw my reflection in the glass. For a moment, it didn't look like me. It looked like someone else was standing there, watching me from inside the reflection. I blinked, and she was gone. That's when I realized something I hadn't before. The scariest part of losing trust isn't fearing others. It's when you start fearing yourself. When your own mind turns into a stranger. I thought the video was my breaking point. But no, the real breaking point was this. The quiet. The doubt. The loneliness that wrapped itself around my heart like cold water. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but instead, I just whispered into the dark. I just want it to stop. My voice cracked halfway through, because even as I said it, I knew it wouldn't. This wasn't over, it was just changing shape. The morning it all came crashing down. The sky looked too calm for what was about to happen. Pale blue, a few lazy clouds, and sunlight slipping quietly through the blinds like the world had no idea I was about to uncover the thing that would finally break me. Or maybe free me. I hadn't slept again. I just sat there, on the edge of the bed, my notebook open in my lap, staring at the last page I'd written before it vanished. But this time, something felt different. Something inside me refused to be afraid anymore. I decided to trace every strange thing that had happened. The messages, the missing pages, the video that disappeared. I started by checking my home security app, something I had stopped using months ago because I didn't like seeing myself move around on the screen. But as I opened it, my chest tightened. The camera in my living room was still on. It had been recording all along. The footage wasn't stored on the cloud anymore, it had been rerouted somewhere else. Someone had access to it. My hands shook as I scrolled through the logs, line after line of dates and times. Then I saw a familiar name buried in the connection list. Michael. My fiancé. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air had turned into glass, sharp and unkind. I stared at the name, at the small line of text that said external access granted, and all I could think was, why? Why would he do that? The man who held me when I cried, who told me I was safe now, who promised me a future free from the pain of my past, had been watching me like I was a stranger on a screen. I didn't want to believe it. I called him 3 times. No answer. The silence on the other end felt deliberate, like he already knew what I had found. I remember standing there, the phone still pressed to my ear, the ringtone echoing in my chest, and I whispered, "Please, just tell me why." But there was only the empty hum of a disconnected call. That night, I drove. I didn't know where it was going. I just needed to move, to get away from that house, that city, that version of my life. My mind was a storm of memories, every smile, every touch, every "I love you," that suddenly felt like a lie told under a camera lens. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The way he always knew when I was upset even before I told him. The way he'd show up unexpectedly when I was alone. I had thought it was love. It wasn't. It was control. I ended up at the beach, the same one where we first met. The waves were calm that night, just a soft hush rolling over the sand. I sat there, shoes off. Hush, rolling over the sand. I sat there, shoes off, toes sinking into the cold, wet ground. For a long time, I didn't move. I let the sound of the water drown out the chaos in my mind. Then I saw headlights behind me, slowly approaching. My heart leapt into my throat. I turned around and it was him. Michael stepped out of the car, his face shadowed by the dim lights. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The wind carried the sound of the waves between us, heavy with all the words I didn't know how to say. Finally, I asked, "Why did you do it?" My voice broke halfway through, fragile and tired. He looked at me, his eyes strangely calm. "I wanted to protect you," he said softly. "After everything that happened after you were followed that night, you stopped trusting people. You stopped trusting me. I thought if I could just keep an eye on you, make sure you were safe." "Safe?" I cut him off. My voice rose, trembling. "You called that safety. You invaded my life, my home, my mind. You made me think I was losing it. Michael, you made me afraid of myself." He took a step closer, but I backed away. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run. "You don't understand," he whispered. "You were slipping away. I couldn't lose you." That's when I realized the truth. He wasn't trying to protect me. He was trying to own me. Every kind word, every tender moment, it all came with invisible strings. And for months, I had been dancing to a song I didn't even know he was playing. I walked past him, my heart pounding. He called after me, but I didn't stop. I reached the car, got in, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fit the key into the ignition. I looked up one last time and saw his face in the rearview mirror, broken and unreadable. Maybe he believed his own lie. Maybe he really thought what he did was love. But I knew better now. Love doesn't cage you. Love doesn't watch you like a secret experiment. I drove until the sun came up. The city faded behind me, replaced by open roads and pale lights spilling over the horizon. Somewhere along the way, I started to breathe again. It wasn't easy. The fear didn't disappear overnight. For weeks, I still woke up thinking someone was watching me. I still flinched when my phone buzzed. But slowly, piece by piece, I began to reclaim myself. One evening, months later, I sat by a window in a small cafe in a new city. My notebook lay open on the table, the pages filled with my handwriting, every truth, every wound, every scar turned into words. The same notebook that once felt cursed now felt like freedom. Writing didn't erase what happened, but it helped me understand it. It reminded me that even when people try to take your story, you can always take it back. Sometimes I still think about him. About how someone can say they love you while quietly destroying the parts of you that make you feel alive. But I've stopped asking why. Some questions don't deserve answers. Some people don't deserve closure. I looked out the window that day, the sun warm on my face, and for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, it wasn't, but because I was still here. Still standing. Still me. The girl who shared her sandwich with a stranger, who believed in kindness even when the world tried to turn it into a weakness. I realized something powerful that day. You can survive anything, even betrayal, as long as you don't let it convince you to stop caring. Because kindness, even when it breaks you, is still the one thing that saves you in the end.